What are the ways that I self-sabotage regarding making changes? Let's dive into the center of the fire and discuss this hot topic. Welcome to the Man on Fire podcast. It is your host and the creator of Man on Fire, David Mailer. Well, here I am in the men's transformational space, and I did transformational and healing work since 1994. And I've worked with thousands upon thousands of people that want a better life, that want more health, that want more vibrancy, and they want to live into their full potential. So what are the ways that we sabotage this regarding making these changes? Because deep down, I think a part of us really wants to have a better life, wants to have a different life, wants to have a more grand life, wants to access what we're truly made of and step into that potential. So one day when we do take that final breath, we're super proud of the life that we lived. Well, let's first address the elephant in the room as to how do I self-sabotage regarding making changes. And we went into this a little bit in the previous podcasts. And the elephant in the room is that deep down, so many of us are afraid to fail. And what does that really mean? It means what you made it mean. And most of us made it mean the same thing. We make it mean that if we failed at something, we're not good enough. We're inept. We're dumb. We're stupid. We're inadequate. And if we're all of those things, then we're unworthy and undeserving. And what are we undeserving of? We're undeserving, most likely, of our parents' love. It all stemmed from our childhood, where we had this terror to not be good enough. And in doing so, we felt like our parents would withdraw their love. And on we carry this pattern into our adulthood. And now we don't take risks, we don't roll the dice, we don't gamble, all because we have this fear where we're afraid to fail. And then in my previous podcast, we went into an even deeper fear where we have a fear that we're afraid of our light. We're afraid to actually shine our light so powerfully. So you got it from both ends. I'm afraid to fail and I'm afraid to succeed. So where do you go from here? Well, what are some other reasons or ways that we self-sabotage regarding making changes? Is that we have these addictions. And what addictions am I referring to? I'm not talking about an addiction to pornography or an addiction to drugs or an addiction to sex or an addiction to making money. I'm talking about two addictions that encompass those addictions. And what are those addictions? Well, number one, and this one's a hard one to see and admit, but one of the addictions that we have is that we are addicted to drama. We are addicted to having problems. Think about it. Look at the things you read. Look at the things you listen to. Look at the TV that you watch. Look at the things you scroll through on Facebook. We are constantly in the drama either of our own life or of other people's lives. In fact, I remember one time in my chiropractic office, all the way back in the day in New York City, there was a woman that would come in every day complaining. And I told her that she was banned from saying anything negative about herself for the next 30 days. So what did she do? She started talking about other people and how horrible things are in their life. And so I banned her from saying that. And so what did she do? She never came back to my office. Why? Because we have an unconscious addiction to talking about problems or to having problems and drama in our life. It sounds so crazy because we want this bigger and better life, but yet there's a part of us that's addicted to drama. And as a side note, for many of us, the environment that we grew up in, unconsciously and unknowingly, we might recreate it in our life. So if you grew up around an environment that was tumultuous, that was controversial or adversarial in nature, where there was arguing and fighting in your household, there's a good chance that you repeated that. Well, what's another great addiction that we tend to have? And this one we've talked about in other podcasts, and it tends to fly beneath the radar, like on stealth mode. And it's what really plagues man today, and it's the addiction to a life of complacency. What the hell does that mean? It means that you have settled for a life that is okay, that is ordinary, that is bland, that is average, that is fair, that is good. And you have this part of you that knows you're built for more. You know you're built for a higher standard. You know you're built for a higher potential. You know you're built to bust through the ceiling and to really go for it. But we have this addiction to just keeping it safe, staying complacent, keeping things where you can control it. So now you're, where the average is, where the best of the worst meet the worst of the best. And we all know that it's most crowded at the bottom of a totem pole. So it's important that we become aware of this addiction that we all have to a life of complacency. Because none of us, and I repeat, if you've been following any of my podcasts, none of us were born for a life of complacency. No, we were born for extraordinary. We're born for phenomenal. And don't you, yes, you, I'm talking to you, don't you forget it. What are other ways that we sabotage regarding making changes? Well, some of us have what a lot of people refer to as perfectionism. By the way, I'm not big on labels, but I like to explain what's behind the label. Like, I don't like to say the word alcoholic or the word narcissist. However, what are the thought process or what are the behaviors behind these things that a lot of us put labels on? But some of us do go by the label of perfectionism. And what does it really mean? It just means like I'm scared shitless to fail. I'm scared to get it wrong. So I'm going to make sure everything is perfect. Everything's aligned. Everything's in a row. And then I'll finally launch it. And how many of us want to launch a business and here we are 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 years later and we haven't done it yet? Why? We fall into the perfectionism. What's really underneath that is we're scared. This is a painful thing to really look at it this way, but sometimes you can look at perfectionism as a form of being a coward. And that's not to single anybody out that's listening right now, because there's parts of all of us that are a coward. I have parts of me that are a coward, and parts of me that have courage. But the question is, which part do we feed more? And sometimes when we get caught up in a world of being a perfectionist, really what's happening is we're just terrified to fail. And I have immense empathy and compassion for that way of feeling and thinking and being. I've experienced this. The men that I've worked with in the Man on Fire programs have experienced this. So if somebody's listening right now and this is what's going on for you, please don't beat yourself up. There's nothing that I ever bring to anyone's attention is meant to bring you down. It's meant to liberate you by helping you become more aware. Because when we have patterns that we can't see, when they're invisible, they will run our life. And so what we want to do is bring what's behind us where we can't see it and bring it in front of us. And once we can see it, once we can understand what's happening, it loses its power over us. And that's the idea here with all of my podcasts. So please know, I'm here to always build people up, never, never, ever make you feel bad. Now, with that said, what are some other ways that we self-sabotage? Well, some of us go by the title or the identity of I'm a workaholic. I have no time. All I do is work. And we take great pride in having a strong and a good work ethic, but you got to be careful. Are you hiding behind work where it's preventing you from going after the things that are more important to you, like a deeper mission, a deeper purpose? Maybe you're caught up in the identity of how you provide for your family and you work so hard and you don't want to lose the amenities and the things that you offer your family, from the house to the schools and the vacations. But maybe there's something else calling you on a deeper level and you want to make these changes, but you're hiding behind being the workaholic, or you're hiding behind being the perfectionist, right? Again, not to label, but just for you guys to have a little bit more awareness. And so for these people that are workaholics, what they struggle with is time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. If I had enough time, then I would do it. But I don't have enough time because I'm working. Why am I working? Taking care of my family. If I can't take care of my family, what's underneath that? The elephant in the room. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I can't provide for my family. Who am I? What kind of a dad am I? What kind of a husband am I? So no thanks. I don't have enough time. I'm a workaholic. Then there's other ways that we sabotage, where sometimes we just stay really busy versus being really productive. You know what I'm talking about? Like the day goes by, like, oh my God, what the hell did I do today? You stayed busy, doing things, moving things around, but were you really moving the needle? Were you being productive, or were you just being busy? And that's one for us to look at, of where we sometimes feel like we're enough because at least we're doing something, at least we're staying busy. But if we're not moving forward, if we're not progressing, we have to be honest enough with ourselves to recognize, I need to recognize how this is a self-sabotaging pattern, because I know I want to make change. And in order to make the change, I got to be able to see what I haven't been able to see previously. I have to have the blind spots illuminated. So are you one of those people that just stays busy for the sake of staying busy, which really what's underneath that is I'm afraid to feel like I'm failing? What's another way? Well, this is something I learned from one of my teachers, Donnie, and I love this teaching. And he says that there's a word called sacred. And by definition, it's what you give your time, energy, attention, and your focus to. And so I'll ask men, for example, that come to our Man on Fire 4-day immersion, hey, what's sacred to you? And most of them will say, well, my health is, my body is, my wife is, my children are. And yet I'll ask them, well, what percentage of your day are those people getting your time, energy, attention, and focus? And then there's crickets. Why? Because so many of us will have things like pornography in our life, alcohol in our life, weed in our life, scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through all the social media platforms, doing all these things, from playing golf to watching sports to listening to the radio to listening to podcasts. And you have to recognize that those things are getting your energy. Those things are getting your attention. Those are what you're really deeming sacred. So you want to be seen as the person that made your family sacred, your health sacred, your soul's mission sacred. But if it's not getting your time, your energy, your attention, and your focus, then truth be told, you have not deemed those things sacred. And you must. And that is one of the biggest self-sabotaging patterns that we have in order to make change. You have to make sure that your time and your energy, your attention, your focus goes towards what is truly sacred to you. What's another way that we self-sabotage? And by the way, I'm only going over a bunch on today's podcast, but we can come up with a list of at least 100. What's another way that we do this is that we are always future projecting. We're always fooling ourselves into thinking that I'll eventually do it, which is, pretty much similar to what I call the ostrich syndrome, where you bury your head in the sand and you pretend the problem's not there. And by the way, there was a guy one time at one of my events that told me, that's not really true. Ostriches don't really do that. So let's just for now say that they don't, but let's pretend that they do. And so what we mean by this is that, an ostrich would think that if I bury my head in the sand, then I won't see the lion, therefore the lion can't see me. So how many of us future predict, trying to fool ourselves into thinking, I'll get to it next week, I'll get to it next month, I'll start it next year, I'll start it on New Year's. And we constantly go into the future to escape this current time zone. Why? Because in this current time zone, we'd have to be with the pain of the fact that we're not doing what we said we were going to do. We're not in integrity to our word. We're not committed to what we said we were going to do. We're not moving the needle, and we're self-sabotaging by constantly jumping time zones and going into the future where we're fooling ourselves to the illusion that we're going to get something done when the truth is we're not. We do this with our health. We do this with our finances. We do this with our mission and purpose. We do this with our kids. We do this with our wife. We're constantly jumping time zones saying, eventually I'll be a better dad. Eventually I'll be a better husband. Eventually I'll get to that six-pack abs. Eventually I'll start that new business. Eventually I'll go after my mission and purpose. And you guys know from previous podcasts, time is our most treasured and precious commodity. Why? Because lost time is never found, according to Ben Franklin. And when I used to chill out with him back then in the past life, that's what I remember him telling me, and I brought it into this lifetime. It is true. For those of you listening, lost time is never found. It should be our most treasured and precious commodity. Well, what are some other ways that we self-sabotage? Well, this is kind of connected to all of them. What this is that we have become numb. We have dulled out our senses, our feelings, our emotions, and therefore we lose leverage to make change, which we've discussed in other podcasts. What do I mean by that? It means that we are most likely disassociated with what the impact will be. So for example, I coach men. I've been doing that since around 2015 and working with men and women since 1995. And I've had the honor and privilege, to have worked with literally hundreds upon hundreds of thousands. And I've also taken care of a lot of luminaries and visionaries in this world, including the likes of Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer. Very fortunate, very blessed. And believe me, I see all people as equal. But what happens is that we're not in touch with the impact of something that we ignore, that we sweep under the carpet, like the ostrich. We're not in touch by future pacing and going to the future as if I'll get it handled, and we lose sight of what the impact will be. So like having worked with all these men, for example, a lot of them will say, yeah, she's divorcing me. And I'll say, and they'll say it came out of left field. And I'll say, did it really come out of left field? And there's a long pause. And they're like, well, I kind of knew something was awful. What happened? And I'll say, yeah, well, for a lot of years, she was saying, I can't feel you, or you're always in your head, or you're never present with me. You're not really with me. You're here, but you're not really here. You're at our kids' baseball game, but you're not really there. You're in work. You're at our daughter's recital, but you're not really there. You're in your phone. You're in your head. You're at work. And so the writing was on the wall. The signs were there. And so what happens is we become really good at disassociating with what will the impact be. What will the impact be if I stay in my head? What will the impact be if I can't drop in and be present with my kids or present with my wife? Oh my God, the impact will be, I love you, but I'm no longer in love with you. The impact will be, I want a separation. The impact will be, here's divorce papers. The impact will be financial ruin. The impact will be, my kids don't talk to me anymore. The impact will be, now all of a sudden my children are not going to marry the person I tell them to. They're going to marry what I modeled, and I'm not proud of what I modeled. And again, I'm not sharing any of this for you to beat yourself up. But what I want you to look at is, oh my God, am I walking my talk? Am I modeling for my children how to be rather than just telling them? Because they'll copy what I do, not what I say. So many of us have become so good at disassociating with the impact. We never look at the repercussions. We never look at the consequences. We never look at what's the ultimate impact going to be if I don't change, if I don't step into the fullness of who God made me to be, if I don't step into my full potential. So one way that we self-sabotage is that we completely disassociate with the impact. What the hell can we do about all this? Well, David, thank you for saying that, because now that I recognize I'm almost every pattern that you said. Thanks a lot, David. You really brought me down. Again, if you feel down from what I'm saying, number one, I'm sorry. Number two, Use that as fuel and leverage to get angry at yourself, frustrated, where you have enough leverage to say enough and do something about it. Because I am here, my team is here, the Man on Fire organization is here to lift you up, right? Together we all rise. We do it in community. So what is the mindset that I want you to have? And I want you to say this every day into the mirror. Because you already have a voice in your head, and you're letting that voice talk to you every day. And I can promise you that voice is trying to tell you that you're not good enough. So what should you say every day into the mirror, at least 10 times, until you actually believe yourself? You say, I am worthy of the changes that I want to make. I am worthy of the changes I want to make. You say that into the mirror until you cry, until you laugh, until you yell, until you scream, until you see the tears. You get associated with that. You believe the person that you're talking to in the mirror. You believe the person that's talking back to you in the mirror. And you keep saying every day, I am worthy of the changes. I am worthy enough. I am worthy of the changes. Because we always have that voice in our head, which we've talked about in previous podcasts. We always have those pirates, those saboteurs that are trying to pull us down, bring us down, keep us from making the changes, keep us from rising into our full potential, keep us from rising into who God made us to be. But not today, not for you, because you are going to have the mindset of, I am worthy of these changes. And no matter how much conditioning and programming you have had that tries to tell you that you're not enough, whether it came from a parent, whether it came from an ex-lover, whether it's coming from yourself, today is the day that you put an end to that. And you say into the mirror, I am worthy of these changes. So put into the chat, if you're seeing this on YouTube, or maybe you see one of our emails, maybe you're on iTunes or Spotify, but let us know in the comment section, let us know in the chat, what did you get? What is your greatest takeaway from today's podcast? And are you willing to say that into the mirror? And if you have, let us know that you did it, and let us know 30 days later how it's going for you. And I promise you there'll be some changes. What's another thing that you can do to start making these changes? And I will say this every single podcast. Why? Because it's my truth and it's been burned into me, and you can't take away somebody's truth. You can't tell me that oven's not hot when you touch it, when it's on 450 degrees. You can't tell me it's not hot. I know it's hot. I have that burned experience. Just like I've walked across fire. It is hot. And if you're not in the right mindset, you will get burned. So what's the mindset I want you to have is, I'm worthy of these changes, and I want you to know this forever. The fastest path to change is to get with a group that is going after the same changes and have support, have challenge, and be held accountable. That's right. Support, challenge, and accountability. Why? Because if we're left to do it by ourselves, while yes, we can do it, the path to getting there is going to be slower. You will go faster and you will go further if you do it in a group. Do it with support, do it with challenge, do it with accountability. If Man on Fire's been speaking to you and you feel like this is the right community for you, great. You reach out to us and we'll find the right program for you. Or if you have another program, another community, great. But make sure that they are holding you to the fire. Make sure that they're holding you accountable. Make sure they're supporting you and not letting you get away with what you've gotten away with in the past, because we all have sabotaging patterns that are keeping us from making the changes. Together, we all rise. Here's to you guys rising with passion, with power, and with purpose. Is your Man on Fire mentor, David Mailer. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you'll know the next episode has dropped.